Our speaker for this session is Simon Ng, Director of Policy and Research. Please welcome Simon.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be here with real audience and also, friends joining online. So my name is Simon Ng. I'm with the Business Environment Council. And to start with, I'd like to thank Chris for inviting BEC to be the program and education partner of this event. I think this is a great event, and I'm so happy, we've got such a positive support, and so I hope you all enjoy the rest of this event. So what I'm going to do today, I really want to share with you my thoughts on the evolving role of businesses in public policy making. And I will try to base that on my personal experience, including some of the insights that I've gathered in the past 15 years, working in different positions, but at the end of the day, related to policy making, how we drive policy forward, and how we get the business sectors involved in that process. Now, this is the overview of learning outcomes that I hope I would tick all the boxes if, after the talk. But to start with, I don't want to go into a lecture, but I need to share with you these random boxes and arrows, but more importantly, some of the text and the messages behind. Obviously, with the public policy making process, we very often started with a problem. For example, air pollution, traffic congestion, and you look upon the government to take some actions to help society by and large to resolve those issues. And in that process, it involved policy formulation, policy adoption, implementation, and towards the end of that cycle, sometimes they will go into evaluation and try to fine-tune the policy, and then we start another cycle. I think more importantly, after looking into this generic cycle, who are the key players in that public policy making process? I already mentioned the government, and I think we all feel that they have the utmost responsibility to take policy forward. But having said that, and I'm sure most of you in the room had experience, sometimes good, but maybe more often a negative experience about policy making here in Hong Kong. Especially, we have taken a long time, very often, to get to a point where we have the right policy in place so as to facilitate change that we are looking forward to. Now, therefore, I feel that other players have an important role to play. These players include, of course, the community, the general public. We're talking about the businesses, the private sector, but also the trade unions, the association that's representing the business sector. We have to consider the important role of NGOs, green groups, think tanks, and the academia. I think we have a lot of representatives from these sectors in the room today. And last but not least, I specifically also want to mention media because they carry an important role in communicating some of the public opinions, and opinions will influence government's position or thinking behind a policy formulation. Now, so these are what these key players are going to to do and their focus areas. I want to specifically highlight two groups that's related to businesses. The private sector, the associations, and the union. Traditionally, our impression is that the business sector, of course, they have a vast interest in different policy development and different government policy, basically. What they are trying to do is, they will share their opinions, they will maybe do some lobbying, and trying to influence policy. Now, that's like the traditional way. They very often, do it through consultation or, through submissions. For example, policy address consultation is open, then business groups, different, companies, they may prepare their own submission and try to voice out their concerns or maybe their preferred policy directions or maybe even policy support to facilitate their own work. Now, again, as I said, this is like the traditional way, and it comes in numbers. You can basically count every year how many opportunities you've got from the business sector's point of view to make some influence and impact. But what I'm going to share with you later on is actually, you can do more than just that. There are other ways that, as the business sector's point of view, that you can actually influence policy in a good way. Now, I'm going to use two examples that I've been involved in. These are all first-hand examples. And I really hope to demonstrate to you that actually there are other good ways involving the business to help government move forward with policies. And in that journey, it will also benefit the community by and large. So the first example is about air pollution. Now, if you recall, 15 years ago, around 2003, 2004, those were the two worst years in terms of air pollution in Hong Kong and also in the region. We had, misty days and hazy days, even in summertime. And I think at that time, the government focused a lot on emissions coming from the power plants and also, to some extent, from the road transport sector. Okay, that's based on their emission inventory. So basically, the government estimated emissions coming from major sectors, and they will have a number, and by that number and the percentage share, they will determine in terms of their policy, whether they should go after the power plants, the power company, or the transport operators, and so on and so forth. So at that time, I was working at the University of Science and Technology Institute for the Environment, and I was also doing voluntary work with Civic Exchange, a Hong Kong-based think tank. And we had different ideas. We thought, obviously, power plants and road transport are the main contributor to air pollution here in Hong Kong. But we also feel that the shipping sector, they are also contributing significantly to Hong Kong's air pollution. However, when we look at the numbers provided by the government, they only represented a small percentage of the bigger picture. And that's why, in terms of policy development, that's of lower priority after power plant control and also the road transport sector control in terms of air pollution. Now, we kept on asking the question, if Hong Kong is a major seaport in the world and we have big vessels, you can see ocean-going vessels coming in and out every day, and we also have local vessels, the contribution from this sector must be huge. So we started that inquiry process. We kept asking ourselves and then started to do some research as well as contacting relevant government departments. So we went to talk to the Marine Department. We went to talk to Environmental Protection Department. Of course, the response was, when we look at the numbers, actually it's very small. So that's not the major problem. And for Marine Department, actually that's not my responsibility. That's EPD's responsibility. So we've been turned away. Now, very often people will then stop because there's no way to move forward with this fairly negative response from the government. But we kept on pushing, and we believe in ourselves. If we are looking at a situation like this every day, then something must be wrong, and we have to address the problem. So we started with a lot of research. We even did research related to what's going on elsewhere, related to ship emissions in Europe, in America, especially in the port of Long Beach and Los Angeles, and what they were doing, why they were doing that, what were the health impact behind, and what were the best practices in terms of emission control. And with these information, we also started to engage the shipping industry here in Hong Kong. Now, you would imagine their first reaction. That's not our problem, because the government were telling everyone that you should go after the power plants. You should go after transport operators, the private cars, but not ships. Now, with our research on ships' emissions and the inventory that we were working on, we were able to demonstrate actually a much bigger share of air pollution in Hong Kong are attributed to ships, especially ocean-going vessels, because they were burning bunker fuel, which is very dirty, with a lot of sulfur content, and after combustion, they will pollute the air. With this information, we went back to the shipping industry. with the shipping associations and had a series of conversations, and they slowly changed their attitude and position from being skeptical to our work to believing actually they have a responsibility to improve and they want to become part of the solution. So with that, we work out what we call a Fair Winds Charter. So that's a voluntary initiatives led by the industry, the business sector, the shipping industry, which is up till to date being seen as maybe one of the least receptive, open-minded industry here in Hong Kong. But they are willing to give it a try. They agree to switch to low sulfur fuel when they are berthing in the container terminal area. And they want to put the message clearly across to the government, because at that time the government was still staying on the side. They didn't want to be involved, but they were interested to know the development of the Fair Winds Charter. So with the support, strong support from the shipping industry, the business sector, we were able to clearly explain to the government why we should control ship emissions. These are the ways that we started with voluntary action, but the industry as a whole want the government to regulate very quickly because they are asking for a level playing field. That's important for business because they want to do green, but they want to be the only one and then penalized by going green. They want the entire industry to do so. And to meet that criteria, we must have regulation. We must have clear policy. So in 2015, 10 years after the start of this whole process with research and then engagement with the business sector, the government finally put together a piece of legislation mandatorily require ocean-going vessels to switch to low sulfur fuel when they are above. So I hope this example, myself being involved in the whole process, demonstrated to you that we shouldn't just wait. There are actions that we can do within the business sector to drive change, to create a collective voice, and show it to the government so that the government will move on and to work with you to come up with the policy and regulations that you're looking for. So that's my first example. Now, moving to the next one, as I move on to join the Business Environment Council, my first task is to actually try to put together a program so that our members and also the wider business community can decarbonize. And we had this idea similar to the Fair Winds Charter. We want to have a low carbon charter. We want to use the charter to attract and encourage corporates to set their decarbonization target aligned with the goals of the Paris Agreement. Now, before that, some of our members and also other members of the business community, they have already started their decarbonization journey, but only a handful, usually with the leading companies. The charter actually propel and bring more companies together so as to realize the need to set targets and reaping the benefits of having those decarbonization targets. So what we ask them as our signatory to do is to commit yourself to target setting, set your target, and then have your decarbonization plan. We also ask them to disclose the information, their progress, their challenges on an annual basis so that we can put together a report that's in the public domain for public scrutiny. And last but not least, we also want them to inspire their peers to do the same. So this is not about one or two companies. This is about a collective effort, starting with the charter as a platform to corral, to bring these energies and efforts together, again, as a mean to demonstrate to the government that the business sector is ready to move forward with accelerated climate action. Now, I think the business has always carried a very important weight in public policy making here in Hong Kong. The government usually will consult the businesses and ask them, okay, if I go this way with this policy, are you concerned? Let me know whether you are concerned about that or not. And then the government will fine-tune their policy. If they don't get enough support from the business sector, I'm sure you all understand and you can tell, the government will be hesitant to roll out any policy. Now, if we can use that as a leverage to bring enough support together and tell the government we are ready, and I think the noise is very clear. The business sector especially, in the last couple of years, they are doing a lot on the ground. They want to make it clear to the government, you are not quick enough. You are not following what other cities are doing. And we are ready, so we want you to support the business sector in terms of providing complementary policies, in terms of providing maybe even financial support, so that we can do more, we can do better, and we can do quicker. So I'm pleased to tell you, with the charter, we now have 73 signatories, and we're going to continue with this, initiatives, and hopefully, some of you will consider and join us. But most importantly, even if you don't join the charter, I think you have a role to play, and don't wait for the government or don't wait for BEC to come to you. Start your own action, because time is precious, and that's important. So finally, I think, I want to say to all of you, very often when we start our career in sustainability, we thought, okay, I'm only in this small position, and my work wouldn't make a big impact. But I want you to keep your belief. That's, things that I always remind my students in the past. Every step counts. And, if we can do it on our own and then try to scale that up, and collectively, we will get to something. And I hope the two examples that I shared with you actually demonstrated that's a possible way, and that's the way to go. So with that, thank you for having me today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon.